We all think we know the story of mental illness. We see it as this long, steady march from dark age brutality to our modern, enlightened compassion. But what if that whole story is, well, wrong? We're about to take a deep dive into that very idea, using the work of philosopher Michel Foucault as our guide. And I promise you, it's going to challenge pretty much everything you think you know about madness. So this is the big question, isn't it? The one at the very heart of this whole thing. We tell ourselves this really comforting story of progress. We stopped locking people up in chains and dungeons, and we started treating them with humanity. But Foucault, he asks us to look a little closer. He suggests that what we've always called liberation wasn't really freedom at all. It was just the construction of a new and maybe even more sophisticated cage. Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we have to go back in time, way back, to the end of the Middle Ages. The world back then was haunted by disease and death, and as one enormous fear started to fade, it seems society almost instinctively started looking for a new one to take its place. And this is where Foucault points out something really fascinating. As leprosy started to vanish from Europe, all the structures that were built to contain it, and we're talking thousands of Lazar houses, all of these rituals of separation, they were just left empty. This created a kind of social void, a role for an outcast that needed to be filled. And it was the madman who inherited this role, becoming the new face of a fear that society needed to keep at arm's length. During the Renaissance, this whole idea of exclusion got incredibly literal. You had these things called Narrenschiff, or ships of fools. It's exactly what it sounds like. Towns would literally drive their mad citizens out and hand them over to boatmen. They were just cast adrift on Europe's rivers, becoming prisoners of their own departure. As Foucault puts it so perfectly, the madman is the passenger par excellence. They're always in transit. They belong nowhere, a prisoner of the very journey that was supposed to be their freedom. So this physical casting out, it eventually morphed into the story we all think we know, the great myth of liberation. This is the story we tell about the Enlightenment, where these visionary reformers supposedly stopped seeing madness as some kind of moral flaw and started, finally, treating it like an illness. So the stage is really set by these two big opposing moments. First, you get the Great Confinement in the mid-1600s. These huge institutions pop up, like the Hôpital Général in Paris. And they're designed to lock away not just the insane, but basically anyone considered a problem. The poor, the unemployed, petty criminals. It was a massive crackdown on social disorder. And then, at the end of the 1700s, you get these legendary acts of liberation from guys like Philippe Pinel in France and William Tuke in England. And this is the heroic narrative that we've all inherited, right? Pinel bravely unchaining the so-called beasts in the Asylum, Tuke, guided by his faith, building this peaceful retreat out in the countryside. It's a very clean, very inspiring story of humanity finally winning out over brutality. But this is where Foucault just stops us dead in our tracks. He forces us to pause and ask the most crucial question of all. When those physical iron chains were taken off, what took their place? Was it actual freedom, or was it something else? And this right here, this brings us to the absolute core of Foucault's argument. He argues that when the iron chains of the dungeon were broken, they were simply replaced by the invisible chains of the mind. A new and, frankly, far more subtle system of control was being born. Think about it. The old system was simple, right? It was straightforward. Madness was controlled with physical force. It was a punishment of the body. But this new system? Oh, it was way more sophisticated. It wasn't about restraining the body. It was about restraining the soul. Instead of cages and walls, the new asylum used a whole different toolkit. Constant observation, the pressure to act normal, and this deep internalized sense of guilt. Let's just take a closer look at William Tuke's retreat. On the surface, it sounds so humane, but Foucault shows us the machinery working underneath. Patients were put to work, not really for productivity, but to force them to submit their liberty of mind to rules and order. They were constantly being watched, even at social events like tea parties, where they were judged on how polite they were. The whole environment was designed to make them feel like outsiders who had to constantly police their own behavior just to earn the respect of their keepers. Before the asylum, the madman was feared, for sure, but his madness was, in a very strange way, free to just be. In this new system, he wasn't punished for being mad anymore. No, he was made to feel responsible for it. He was now expected to feel guilty for his own condition. And that guilt, that became the new prison, one that he carried around inside himself. Now, a new system of control like this, it needs a new kind of authority figure. And inside the walls of the asylum, the doctor was about to become this figure of immense, almost godlike power. Foucault argues that the early asylum doctor's authority had very little to do with science or medicine as we know it. He wasn't diagnosing diseases, he was a moral judge. He had power because he was seen as a figure of authority, a combination of a stern father and a wise judge. His job wasn't to cure the madman with medicine, but to master him with the sheer force of his own reason and moral superiority. There's this incredible story from Penel himself that shows this perfectly. He unchained a man who was convinced he was Christ. But instead of arguing with the guy's delusion, Penel did something brilliant. He ordered everyone to completely ignore him. The man, who had actually drawn strength from being a spectacle, was suddenly met with total silence. In that isolation, his glorious delusion just collapsed. It turned into shameful humiliation. The chains of iron were gone, sure, but the chains of shame, they turned out to be far, far stronger. So the picture that starts to emerge is pretty clear, isn't it? The birth of the modern asylum wasn't really a story of progress. It was the moment that control over madness moved from the outside in. It was the creation of a psychological cage far more profound than any dungeon made of stone. The visible chains of that old world, they just fell away. But they were replaced by the invisible judgment of the new one. The asylum became a place where you were always watched, always judged, and always forced to feel responsible for your own madness. The chains disappeared, but the control only deepened. Foucault's history really leaves us with a challenging question for our own time. He showed us how a supposedly humane medical approach could actually hide a really sophisticated system of moral control. So it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What invisible chains, what subtle forms of judgment are shaping our understanding of the mind right now today?